Have you ever noticed that we live in an absurd paradox? Those who talk the most rarely have anything profound to say, while those who carry genuine wisdom prefer silence. And here's the truth nobody wants to admit. The world isn't governed by the brightest, but by the loudest. While extraordinary minds hesitate, question and reflect, mediocrity advances with the confidence of someone who has never doubted themselves. Think with me for a moment. When was the last time you saw someone truly wise, desperately fighting for attention? When was the last time a genius needed to shout to be heard? The answer is simple: almost never. And you know why? Because real intelligence comes accompanied by something that mediocrity completely ignores: awareness of one's own limitations. While the mediocre person lives in the comfortable illusion of absolute certainty, the intelligent one dives into the infinite ocean of doubt. And it's precisely this doubt, this philosophical hesitation, that paralyzes them while others seize power. Let's be honest, we're surrounded by people occupying positions of influence who shouldn't be there. Leaders without leadership, influencers without real influence, experts without expertise. And you know what they all have in common? An unshakable confidence in themselves that has no relation to real competence. It's what psychologists call the Dunning-Kruger Effect. The less someone knows, the more confident they feel. It's as if ignorance were a protective shield against self-criticism. Now contrast this with truly brilliant minds. Einstein doubted his own theories until the end of his life. Socrates, considered the wisest man in Athens, stated that his wisdom resided in knowing that he knew nothing. Darwin took decades to publish his theory because he kept questioning every detail. These giants of human thought shared something in common: a deep respect for the complexity of reality and an intellectual humility that made them cautious. And while they hesitated, others less qualified simply acted. There's an evolutionary reason for this. For millions of years, our ancestors didn't need the most intelligent person leading the tribe. They needed the most confident person, the one who made quick decisions in the face of danger, even if they were wrong decisions. In the African savannah, hesitation meant death. So we developed a cognitive bias that makes us follow confident leaders, not necessarily competent leaders. And this bias remains with us today, manifesting itself in boardrooms, parliaments, and social media. But here's the part that hurts. Why do the intelligent accept this? Why don't they fight for the space they deserve? The answer lies in something much deeper than just personality or shyness. It lies in the very nature of knowledge. The more you know, the more you realize what you don't know. Each answer found generates 10 new questions. It's like climbing a mountain only to discover there are even higher mountains beyond it. This awareness of the vastness of the unknown creates a natural prudence, a reluctance to make absolute statements about anything. And while this happens, the mediocre person lives in a much simpler world. For them, answers are clear, problems are obvious, and solutions are straightforward. There are no nuances, no shades of grey, no paradoxes that need to be reconciled. This mental simplicity gives them an enormous advantage: the ability to act without paralysis. They don't get stuck in infinite analysis because their analysis is superficial from the start. It's like comparing someone crossing a bridge, knowing it might collapse, with someone who simply doesn't see the abyss. Have you ever felt like this? As if you were living in a movie where everyone around you is comfortably blind while you see the cracks in every wall? As if your concerns were invisible to others because they operate on a different frequency of consciousness. It's not paranoia or arrogance. It's just the inevitable consequence of thinking more deeply than average, and that can be extremely lonely. Here's something we rarely discuss. Intelligence can be a curse disguised as a blessing. It allows you to see patterns where others see only chaos, anticipate consequences that others ignore, comprehend complexities that others simplify. But this gift comes with a high price. You begin to question everything, including yourself. Every decision becomes a labyrinth of possibilities. Every statement carries the weight of its exceptions. And while you navigate this mental labyrinth, less reflective people simply choose a path and move forward. Think about the public debates you witness. Who usually wins? It's rarely the person with the most solid arguments. It's usually the person with the simplest rhetoric, the most direct solutions, and the most theatrical confidence. Because our society doesn't reward precision, it rewards performance. We don't value those who think deeply. We value those who communicate clearly, even if the content is shallow. It's easier to follow someone who promises a three-step solution than someone who explains why the problem has 30 variables. And there's another crucial factor we need to name: the existential exhaustion of the intelligent. When you see beyond simplistic narratives, when you comprehend the historical, economic, and psychological forces that shape reality, you develop a kind of fatigue. It's not necessarily depression, but a deep exhaustion in the face of the magnitude of problems and the superficiality of offered solutions. It's as if you were trying to empty the ocean with a spoon, while others celebrate for having wet their feet. But now let me ask you something essential. What if this withdrawal of the intelligent isn't just the result of paralysis or exhaustion? What if, on some unconscious level, it's also a choice? A decision not to participate in a game they consider fundamentally corrupted. Think about it. To assume positions of power in current structures, you often need to make moral concessions, simplify complex messages until you deform them, and compete in arenas that privilege charisma over substance. Many intelligent people look at this scenario and simply say, "I don't want to be part of this." There's a dignity in this withdrawal, but there's also danger. Because when thinking people distance themselves from spheres of influence, who remains? Exactly those least qualified to be there. It's as if the most competent doctors abandoned medicine out of frustration, leaving only charlatans treating patients. The result isn't just bad for individual patients, it's catastrophic for all public health. And this is exactly what happens when the intelligent stay silent. It's not just their voice that's lost, it's the quality of collective discourse that deteriorates. If you've ever felt that your ideas are too complex to be heard, that your reasoning is too deep to fit in a tweet, or that your nuances are too inconvenient for the pace of modern conversation, you're not alone. Millions of brilliant people live this experience daily. And here's the ironic part. By staying silent, they confirm mediocrity's narrative that simplicity is wisdom and complexity is confusion. But perhaps the silence of the intelligent isn't weakness, but strategy. Perhaps it's a silent strike against a system that doesn't value what they have to offer. Or perhaps it's simply self-preservation, a way to protect their mental health in a world that punishes critical thinking. Whatever the reason, the result is the same: a vacuum of intellectual leadership that is quickly filled by those who shouldn't be there. Now here's the part where we need to make a conscious choice, because recognizing this pattern is only the first step. The real question is, what do we do with this knowledge? Do we continue withdrawing, feeding the cycle, or do we find a way to participate without corrupting ourselves? Is there a middle path between impotent silence and capitulation to mediocrity? I'll tell you something few people admit. Yes, there is. But it requires a radical change in strategy. First, we need to accept that complexity and clarity are not opposites. You can think deeply and communicate simply. Einstein said that if you can't explain something to a 6-year-old, it's because you don't fully understand it. True mastery isn't in making things complicated, but in distilling complexity into essence without losing truth. Second, we need to abandon the illusion that staying silent is morally superior. It's not. Omission is also a form of action, and its consequences are real. When thinking people withdraw from public debate, they're not keeping themselves pure, they're abandoning the battlefield. And abandoned battles are lost by default. Your absence doesn't elevate discourse, it lowers it. Third, and this is crucial, we need to recognize that intellectual humility doesn't require silence. You can be aware of your limitations and still share what you know. You can express ideas with confidence while remaining open to revision. The difference between you and the mediocre person isn't that they have certainty and you have doubt. It's that your certainty is informed and theirs is ignorant. This is a distinction worth defending. But there's an even deeper secret that few people know, a truth that can completely change your perspective on all of this. Pay attention, because this part is fundamental. The problem isn't just that mediocre people control the world while the intelligent stay silent. The problem is that we've created a system that rewards mediocrity and punishes depth. And as long as we focus only on correcting the individual behavior of the intelligent, we ignore the structure that produces this result. We live in an era of fragmented attention where Twitter threads replace essays, where reactions replace reflections, and where virality replaces value. In this environment, whoever speaks in slogans beats whoever speaks in paragraphs, not because slogans are superior, but because the system is optimized for them. It's like blaming a fish for not flying while ignoring that it's in the ocean, not in the sky. So here's the true revelation. The silence of the intelligent isn't the problem, it's a symptom. The problem is that we've built a civilization that values speed over precision, simplicity over truth, and confidence over competence. And until we face this structural reality, we'll continue seeing the same patterns repeat. Mediocre people ascending, intelligent people retreating, and all of us paying the price. But here's what this means for you now, today. You have a choice. You can accept this reality as immutable and continue silent, preserving your peace but abandoning your responsibility. Or you can decide it's worth fighting, not to win at their game, but to change the rules of the game, not to become louder, but to make depth audible again. Not to simplify your ideas to mediocrity, but to communicate them with such clarity that complexity becomes accessible. This is your crossroads. And history is watching to see which path you choose, because the world doesn't need more loud voices saying empty things. It desperately needs wise voices, finding the courage to speak, brilliant minds refusing to cede territory, and thinking people recognizing that their silence isn't neutrality, it's complicity. So if this message resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in this description, do something radical. Share this video with someone who also needs to hear this. Subscribe to this channel because we'll continue exploring these uncomfortable truths that the world prefers to ignore. Leave a comment telling your experience with this paradox, because your story matters and might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. The silence of the intelligent isn't inevitable. It's a choice renewed every day. And today you can choose differently, not because it will be easy, but because it's necessary. Not because you have all the answers, but because your questions are better than their certainties. The world belongs to those who show up, and it's time for you to show up. Not their way, but your way. Authentic, deep, and unwavering.